10 Golden Age actors who were actually prostitutes, men. Hollywood's Golden Age looked like a palace of dreams. Glittering gowns, sharp tuxedos, flashing cameras. But behind the velvet curtains, another story played out. Struggling young men with movie star looks didn't always land their roles on talent alone. Some survived by trading charm for opportunity. It was Hollywood's unspoken currency, whispered about in bars, hushed in studio offices. What if I told you that some of the screen's most famous idols once lived by those hidden deals? Before Cary Grant became the very definition of suave, he was Archie Leach, a skinny kid from Bristol with an accent thick as fog. He arrived in New York with a circus troupe, juggling odd jobs and hungry dreams. Rent was high, meals were scarce, and casting agents weren't exactly waiting with open arms. Rumors say Archie found help through wealthy admirers, men charmed by his wit and good looks, who made sure he never went without. Watch early footage of Grant carefully, and you'll notice something. That confidence, that effortless glide, it wasn't born overnight. It was polished in drawing rooms and penthouses, in conversations where survival depended on being irresistible. By the time Hollywood came calling, Cary Grant already knew how to perform not just on stage, but in life. Did you know he even lived for years with fellow actor Randolph Scott in what the press called their bachelor hall? Studio heads brushed it off as quirky, but insiders knew the arrangement was more than friendly. Cary Grant wasn't just playing the charming gentleman in films like His Girl Friday or North by Northwest. He had built that persona out of necessity, out of survival. And when the cameras rolled, audiences weren't just seeing an actor. They were seeing the polished result of a young man who once had to sell more than talent to make it. Rock Hudson. Before Rock Hudson was Hollywood's towering matinee idol, he was Roy Fitzgerald, a shy Illinois mechanic with broad shoulders and a jawline carved from stone. He dreamed of stardom, but dreams didn't pay rent in Los Angeles. Whispers from the industry's back rooms tell us Roy didn't just wait tables. He entertained powerful men who could open doors. It wasn't only about desperation, it was strategy. Those private encounters turned into connections, and those connections soon delivered him to Universal Studios. Publicists built Rock Hudson into the ultimate symbol of American masculinity. He was the man who kissed Doris Day on screen and made women swoon in darkened theaters. But beneath the glossy magazine covers, insiders remembered the kid who once charmed his way into the good graces of men far wealthier than him. When you watch Magnificent Obsession or Pillow Talk, you're not just watching a heartthrob. You're seeing a survivor who once traded his time and charm just to climb one rung higher on Hollywood's golden ladder. Tab Hunter looked like he had been designed in a Hollywood laboratory. Sun-bleached hair, a surfer's grin, and a jawline so sharp it could cut glass. But before he was splashed across magazine covers as America's boy next door, he was Arthur Gellion, a restless teenager trying to escape a rocky home life. Money was always short, and Los Angeles had a way of chewing up dreamers who didn't have a plan. Arthur had something better than a plan. He had charm, and he knew how to use it. Friends later admitted that in those lean early years, Hunter leaned on the generosity of older benefactors. They offered him more than just meals or a place to stay. They gave him introductions, whispered recommendations, and the chance to be seen by people who mattered. In Hollywood, being in the right place wasn't luck, it was strategy. Did you know his first big break came when he was working at a stable, grooming horses, and was noticed by an agent? The story has always been told as a chance encounter, but insiders suggest that meeting may have been arranged with a little help from someone who believed in his potential and had the influence to make it happen. By the time Warner Brothers rebranded him as Tab Hunter, he was already seasoned in the hidden economy of Hollywood. The studio packaged him as innocence itself, the clean-cut star of Damn Yankees and Battle Cry. But behind that poster boy image was someone far shrewder. Tab Hunter had survived the hard way, learning early that in Hollywood, beauty opened doors, but knowing how to play the game kept them open. On screen, he was the all-American boy. Off screen, he was a survivor. Ramon Novarro. Long before Carey or Rock, Ramon Navarro reigned as one of MGM's brightest stars. He was the original Latin lover, rivaling Rudolph Valentino in both looks and popularity. But behind the curtain, Ramon's rise carried its own shadows. Born in Mexico, he came to Los Angeles with little money and dreams as big as the Hollywood Hills. Early on, insiders claimed he found wealthy patrons who were enchanted by his dark eyes and gentle charm. These relationships kept him afloat until MGM took notice. Did you know he replaced Valentino as the studio's leading romantic figure after Valentino's untimely death? The public adored him in epics like Ben-Hur, 1925. But few realized that his glamorous lifestyle had roots in those secret sponsorships. By the 1930s, Navarro was a household name, a man who seemed to have everything. Yet the whispers about his past followed him for decades. His elegance on screen was real, but it was also the mask of someone who had once survived by being irresistible in ways Hollywood would never admit out loud. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins was the boyish outsider who turned Hollywood upside down with Psycho. But long before Norman Bates sent shivers down spines, Perkins was a struggling kid in New York, hungry for a break. He had the tall frame, the nervous charm, the fragile vulnerability that drew people in. And, according to whispers, he also had wealthy admirers who made sure he could afford the rent while chasing auditions. Did you know Perkins lived a double life even before stardom? On one hand, he was the polite, bookish actor studying his craft. On the other, he was quietly building relationships with powerful older men who guided him through the maze of Broadway and Hollywood. By the time Alfred Hitchcock cast him in Psycho, Perkins had already mastered the art of pleasing an audience, whether on stage, on screen, or behind closed doors. The studios packaged him as the sensitive heartthrob of films like Friendly Persuasion and The Matchmaker. But the truth is that Perkins had been navigating Hollywood's hidden economy for years, balancing ambition with survival. When the cameras rolled, he wasn't just performing. He was channeling the lessons learned in a world where charm was as valuable as talent. Tyrone Power? Tyrone Power was Hollywood royalty, the swashbuckling hero of The Mark of Zorro and Captain from Castile. Women adored him, men admired him, and the studios sold him as a paragon of masculine perfection. But rewind to his early 20s, before the fame, and you'll find a young man still searching for his big break. Industry gossip from the 1930s hinted that Power wasn't just waiting tables during his lean years. Some claimed he entertained benefactors who helped him land introductions at Fox Studios. His dashing looks and silky charm were his greatest assets, and he used them as skillfully off-screen as he did with a sword in his swashbucklers. Did you know that even after becoming a star, rumors followed him about discreet arrangements with Hollywood's elite? Studio publicists worked overtime to protect his image, ensuring fans only saw the gallant hero. But those who knew him privately swore that Tyrone's real genius wasn't just acting. It was knowing how to survive in a system where looks and charm could buy opportunity. George Nader. George Nader may not have reached the shimmering heights of stardom like his friend Rock Hudson, but his story reads like a blueprint of how loyalty and sacrifice shaped careers in Hollywood's hidden corners. With his square jaw, broad shoulders, and camera-ready smile, Nader seemed destined to be a leading man. In the 1950s, he started popping up in small roles, working his way through B-movies and the edges of studio pictures. On screen, he looked every inch the hero. Off-screen, survival wasn't as glamorous. Whispers around town suggested that, in his early days, Nader leaned on quiet patronage to keep himself afloat. Wealthy backers and discreet benefactors helped open doors, smoothing his path just enough to keep him in the game. Unlike many actors who denied such arrangements, Nader never seemed ashamed of the powerful friendships that carried him forward. He understood Hollywood's unwritten rules. Sometimes, charm and connections mattered just as much as talent. His closest bond was with Rock Hudson. The two were inseparable, often seen vacationing together or appearing at parties. Insiders said their friendship ran deeper than the tabloids dared print. But when scandal threatened to expose Hudson's private life, Universal made a ruthless decision. To protect their golden boy, they sacrificed Nader. Roles dried up, contracts vanished, and his shot at superstardom evaporated almost overnight. Yet Nader never spoke a bitter word. He quietly stepped back, built a life with his partner Mark Miller, and remained a loyal friend to Hudson. When Hudson died in 1985, he left Nader and Miller a generous inheritance, a final gesture of gratitude. George Nader may not be remembered as a marquee star, but his life reveals the hidden bargains and quiet courage that kept Hollywood's dream machine running. Farley Granger. Farley Granger looked like he had stepped straight out of a storybook, tall, wide-eyed, and impossibly handsome. When audiences first saw him in Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, 1948, and later in Strangers on a Train, 1951, he seemed like the perfect picture of youthful rebellion and tragic beauty. But the truth behind that smooth exterior was far more complicated. Granger grew up during the Great Depression, a time when survival meant ingenuity. His parents scraped by, and Farley carried that same hunger into his teenage years. By the time he hit Hollywood, he had already learned that talent alone wasn't a golden ticket. The town was flooded with beautiful dreamers, and only those who played the game, both on and off screen, had a chance of winning. In his own memoirs, Granger openly admitted what others only hinted at. He formed relationships with wealthy and powerful men who gave him more than affection. They gave him stability, introductions, and opportunities he might never have found alone. Did you know that at just 18 years old, he was introduced to producer Samuel Goldwyn after being spotted at a party? Insiders swore his looks did the talking that night, and soon Goldwyn took him under his wing, grooming him into one of Hollywood's most promising young actors. On screen, Granger played the sensitive outsider, the restless soul who never fit neatly into society's box. Off-screen, he was living that very role, navigating a world where charm and intimacy could open doors just as fast as raw talent. For Granger, survival in Hollywood meant using every gift he had, even the ones the public was never supposed to see. Scotty Bowers. Scotty Bowers may never have been a headline star, but in the secret history of Hollywood, his role was bigger than most. A former Marine turned gas station attendant on Hollywood Boulevard, Scotty stumbled into a side hustle that became the town's most whispered-about operation. In his memoir, Full Service, he pulled back the curtain, claiming he connected some of the biggest names in movies, Cary Grant, Rock Hudson, Anthony Perkins, and more, to discreet company away from the cameras. But before Scotty became the man arranging secret introductions, he was part of that hidden economy himself. Did you know his first encounter happened when a wealthy client pulled into his gas station, slipped him cash, and asked if he'd be interested in a private meeting? Scotty said yes, and just like that, the gas station underground was born. Word spread quickly, and soon Scotty wasn't just a hustler. He was the operator of Hollywood's most discreet and trusted network. While glamorous stars played gods, kings, and warriors on the big screen, Scotty was the man they turned to when the lights dimmed. He wasn't dressed in tuxedos or posed for magazine covers, but he kept the machine running, ensuring stars could live double lives without headlines ruining their careers. Some people call him a footnote. Others call him the most important figure in Hollywood's hidden history. Either way, without Scotty Bowers, many of the Golden Age's brightest legends might never have survived the shadows. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn wasn't just a Hollywood star, he was the living embodiment of danger wrapped in a tuxedo. From the moment audiences saw him swing onto the screen in Captain Blood, 1935, he became the face of reckless glamour. By the time The Adventures of Robin Hood hit theaters, Flynn was more than an actor. He was a legend in motion, the kind of man who made adventure look effortless. But the truth? His life before fame was every bit as wild as the roles he played. Long before Warner Brothers polished him into their leading rogue, Flynn was drifting across the globe. He worked as a plantation overseer in New Guinea, dabbled in odd jobs in Sydney, and even tried his hand at treasure hunting. Yet behind the tall tales of pirates and palm trees lay something less romantic: survival. Stories from those restless years suggest that Flynn wasn't above using his charm and striking good looks to win over wealthy patrons who kept him afloat. Did you know he often teased interviewers with the line, "I sailed through life on charm alone"? Audiences laughed, but insiders took it as a sly confession. They knew his early years were filled with whispered deals and quiet arrangements, moments where his wit and smile bought more than just drinks at the bar. Even after stardom, those rumors clung to him like a shadow he couldn't escape. On screen, Flynn was the gallant outlaw, the swashbuckler who stole from the rich and gave to the poor. Off screen, he was no different, except the treasures he chased weren't crowns or castles, but opportunity itself. He survived by his wits, his beauty, and his nerve, building a career out of choices Hollywood would never dare put in writing. So there you have it. 10 Golden Age idols who weren't just actors, but survivors in a game rigged against the desperate and the hungry. They traded charm for opportunity, and in doing so, shaped the very myths Hollywood sold to the world. The next time you watch a classic, ask yourself, how many careers were built on deals history tried to erase? If you crave more secrets from behind the silver screen, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on the shadows.